Okay, so Hawkeye, he gets a good amount of flack in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But you know what? I like you. I liked you, Hawkeye. I thought you were cool. I thought you were okay. And then I saw you on an interview with Jimmy Kimmel, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, there's Hawkeye." And he's all talking about how I went and was going for this computer science degree. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, he was a computer nerd too?" And then Jeremy Renner looked around and said something along the lines of, I want to be one of these people. I want to hang out with these people. You're dead to me, Hawkeye. You're dead to me. Okay, this time we have some new gear from Fnatic and another couple of firsts for me. I'm going to be doing a keyboard, mouse, and a mouse pad reviews. So, hey, guess we'll do what we always do, which is start out with just a general summary. So Fnatic is trying to gear gear their gear towards online gamers, League of Legends, esports type people. So I have to say that when you put it down into that narrow of a focus, they hit the nail right on the head. There isn't a lot of fancy bells, there isn't a lot of fancy whistles. And while overall I don't have a ton to compare to, I did get to compare to enough keyboards to tell that yes, there's a difference between gamer quality and regular quality. So overall, I feel like what Fnatic is doing with their rush, their flick, their mouse pad, the focus is right on spot. It's what they need to be. However, if you were looking for something that has a little bit more flair to it, you want the LEDs, you want a little more customization as far as like color schemes, aesthetics, so on and so forth. They might not be exactly what you're looking for. I mean, it's hard to compete with Corsair right now. But we'll get into more of that detail later. Overall, these are solid products, excellent quality, definitely seem to live up to the gamer name. I don't have a complaint there. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the build quality. We'll get into the performance here in just a second. Um, One of the things on their website, on Fnatic's website, it's really hard to pin down some kind of special feature. So, I mean, outside of saying that they're an esports company, I can't really tell you that they do this one particular thing better than anybody else or different than anybody else. But what I can tell you is these products are fantastic. I've been using them for several weeks now. Been working through other reviews and stuff, and so the build quality is fantastic. I haven't noticed a creak. I haven't noticed anything that feels like it's getting out of place. Um, Confession time. I have super clammy hands, so pretty much any product I get gets gummy really fast, or starts looking bad, or gets fingerprints really easily. And these things are designed not to do that. And I'm actually really impressed at how clean they still look. In fact, in spite of the several weeks that I have used them. So excellent quality, excellent build. The keyboard is just very solid, kind of heavy, but feels really intact. The mouse feels very solid. So I think we got a really good build quality here. The mouse pad, I don't know. I feel like a mouse pad's a mouse pad, except for those cheap $10 Walmart ones. But if you get a gamer mouse pad, I can't say I've noticed a huge difference, but it's still a really nice mouse pad. They've got tons of sizes to fit whatever need you want. So quality wise, A plus there. I mean, there's not much that they could do better as far as actual build quality that I can tell. So features is where things kind of feel, I don't know if I'd call it flat, but it's where you start kind of thinking, all right, what's the point of this gear? And honestly, this is where I've had the hardest time reviewing these products because there's nothing that stands out about these keyboards or this mouse or this mouse pad. Now, granted, they talk about gamer professional quality. We're talking about optical sensors here. We're talking about a mouse pad that's specially designed to track optical sensors so that your mouse goes exactly where you move it. And if you're doing really quick flicks, it's all right there when you do it. Um, Overall, I don't know if the mouse pad changes a lot of that. the mouse itself does seem to really respond well. So I would not have any complaints there. Go into more detail on that in a second. But feature-wise, there's just not a lot here. You're not going to have RGB LEDs. And that's something I mean, that right there is, to me, worth its weight in gold. Now, you do have RGB in the mouse wheel, but because there's no RGB in the keyboard, you know, if you're kind of obsessive compulsive like I am, I'm like, well, if I've got a red keyboard, I'm gonna have the scroll wheel just stay on red. So, but the LEDs on the mouse look nice, but you know, you're just talking about a very simple. You've got just a few buttons there. It's a very straightforward product. So if you're looking for bells and whistles, you're not going to find it. But there is a few things that are really nice. The braided cables are excellent. The keyboard particularly has a very thick, nice braided cable. The mouse, even though it's not as thick, and that's really because you don't want cable drag on the mouse, it's still sturdy, good quality, very nice braiding. The keyboard has the 2 USB ports on the back there that just use, and it only uses 1 USB port for the connection to your computer. So it's not only freeing up your USB ports and making sure it's not tying any up, it's actually giving you 2 extra. So that's fantastic. The other thing that I was impressed with, although I gotta admit nothing phenomenally new, but their software package worked great. So I ran through a few things. The keyboard's pretty straightforward. You can set some macros, set keys to macros, have multiple profiles to save that. Simple, straightforward. The only thing that I noticed about the software is when I first installed it, it kept telling me that the keyboard wasn't detected. The keyboard wasn't detected. And I kept trying to, I was like, run administrator, maybe this is a Windows 10 issue. And eventually I dug a little deeper into the software that you install when you download the Rush software, and found out that you have to go a little bit deeper and you find a driver folder and you install that driver, and then the software has no trouble saying, oh yeah, here's your keyboard. So, but if you don't have that software installed, Windows picks up this keyboard and it works just fine. So it's totally plug and play. It's just you need to dig in deeper into the software package to find that driver to make the software work with it. The Flick, its software too, runs excellently. I did not have any problems with it. It was very easy to customize. Of course, I wanted to set the mouse wheel to be solid red. I played around with the DPI settings. You can also do macros on the mouse, reassign your buttons. I'm pretty straightforward. I'm not much of a macro guy. I mean, pretty much any game I play, I've got all my hotkeys mapped out to what I do with my hand and using the normal mouse keys. So I don't really have a lot of need for macro, but it's all there, and it worked great. So maybe not a standout feature, but the features are very good, excellent quality, doesn't feel like they're getting in the way of your gaming, and that's fantastic. All right, let's talk about the performance. Now, I am not a Platinum League of Legends player. I just play one on YouTube. But, in all seriousness, I do love competitive games. I love to play them. I may not be the greatest at them, and I also don't have a ton of time to play them as much as I'd like. But League of Legends, World of Warcraft Arenas, Heroes of the Storm, all things that I've enjoyed playing. So let's start with the mouse. The mouse was, honestly, everything here performance-wise is going to be excellent for the purpose that it's designed. The Flick, its weight is a little heavier than your standard corded mouse, but it's also not, you don't have adjustable weights, it's not super heavy. It feels just right. It feels like it's the perfect balance of weight and size to really make it easy to move, but you can still feel like you have good control over it. And you know, with that whole gamer touch on it, doesn't surprise me. There is no adjustable weights. This thing is just like, hey, this is the weight you want to have if you're an esports player, and I'm inclined to agree with them. They also tilt the cord up a little bit so that you don't have cord drag, and so it makes the mouse just float nice and simply, very easy to move. It's very possible that part of this is with the Focus mouse pad. Now, personally, I don't know if I'm going to say that there's a huge difference between the Focus and any other gaming mouse pad. I do feel like they're better than your Walmart specials that you buy for $1. But as far as gaming pads are concerned, I've got a Tesoro. I'm not really seeing a huge difference between the two. At the same time, if I've already got 2 Fnatic pieces on my desk, it's very likely I'm going to want a Focus mouse pad to complement it anyway. But the mouse pad was excellent. so I wasn't worried about it. Here's the key. On performance, when I was playing League of Legends, one of the things I noticed is my cursor, I would not lose it. And that's actually kind of abnormal because most of the time when I play League, there'd just be some points where I would lose the cursor and you'd be like, oh crap, where's my cursor? If you're in a team fight and you lose your cursor, you got a problem. And I don't lose my cursor, and I just always seem to know where it's at. You combine that optical sensor with that mouse pad, and maybe that's just what's happening. So I feel like they're doing a really good job there. Next thing that's going on now is we've got this keyboard. Now, the keyboard is kind of, to me, a little bit of a misnomer. I mean, to talk about esports design is great and all, but you're using cherry switches, and there is an aspect of a cherry switch is a cherry switch. Well, first thing, cherry switches are better than any of your off-brands. I bought a Lenovo keyboard that has some red switches in it, but I believe the company that made them were Kales. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce them, but you know, off-brand, I believe they're China-made. And what I noticed is after a good weekend of being on the rush, I would go to my Lenovo at work, and I would keep misclicking. Like I would push a key and it wouldn't register. And I started realizing I was already getting used to how good the actuation point is on these cherry switches. So for anybody who's wondering, are cherry switches better? Yes. Are Kale switches better than membrane? Heck yeah. But cherry still beat Kales. There's just no two ways about it. And I would imagine any kind of off-brand switch. Outside of that, you know, a cherry switch is a cherry switch. One thing that I did notice about the Rush, though, compared to just about any other keyboard that I've used, and I haven't had a lot of mechanical keyboards that I've used, but I've definitely used a lot of different membranes and off-brands and you know, whatever I can get my hands on. The keys feel just a little bit tighter together than most keyboards. And the reason why I mention that is that, especially when I'm playing like an MMO and B is your usual backpack bag button, I would go to reach for it and I would always overreach and go to N if I've been spending too much time on my other keyboards. And I think that's actually a really good thing because with having the keys a little bit closer, I think it's going to make it a little bit easier to be more accurate and a little quicker on those reaction times. So I think that's something that is on purpose, even though I was having a hard time finding something that told me, yes, this is definitely on purpose. But it feels like it. It feels a little tighter, and it feels great when I've spent a whole week on, if I've spent a good amount of time on the Rush, then I get very adapted to this keyboard, and it feels very comfortable. So overall, performance-wise, yes, I do believe that they have catered this to an esports community, and I believe that it is living up to that reputation. All right, let's go ahead and wrap all this up and give it an award. So ultimately, it kind of comes down to price. Now, we have some esports gear here, so I was kind of expecting to see some kind of markups, honestly. I was like, they're banking on the esport community, so these are probably going to be pricey. But surprisingly, the prices were really fair. On the Rush keyboard, we're looking at 99 euros, and that translates to an even $99 on Amazon as well. So I was like, that's a solid price for a mechanical keyboard that's using cherry switches. I mean, that's not necessarily the cheapest, but a lot of keyboards that go cheaper either skimp on the numpad or they're using cheaper switches. So that's a really fair price. I mean, I wouldn't say it's cheap by any stretch of the imagination, but no, it's definitely fair for what's being offered and the quality. Now the Flick, I couldn't really find a U.S. place that's selling it. Amazon has it listed, but it's not available. So, either Fnatic is planning on stocking it, or, they are, or, who knows, it's Amazon. But their euro price is $55. So if that translates right over, well, 55 euros, sorry. Not trying to totally Americanize everything, but I am from America. So anyway, the Flick, it's if it translates over and it's $55, which coincides with the 55 euros, that's a pretty good price for a gaming mouse. And once again, we're not having a complaint with quality here. So, Flick 55, that's a good price. It's not the cheapest, but it's solid. It's what you expect to pay for a quality gaming mouse at the minimum usually. The Focus mouse pads, you can get a large for $15 on Amazon. You can get the XL for $20. Honestly, I feel like a large is going to be better, but plenty big enough for most people. The XL just felt huge for me, but hey, I mean, it gives you plenty of room to move your mouse around. But either way, those prices are pretty standard. I've seen some mouse pads. I've done shopping. I've seen them go cheaper, but they're usually a little bit more off brand. So they're not totally gouging the mouse pad. Which if they were going to gouge anything on price, I would have thought they'd gone with the mouse pad. So it's neat to see that Fnatic is trying to offer quality gear without just using the esports labeling to jack up the prices. And I'm actually very impressed with that. Excellent quality, excellent performance. The features are solid, but they're bare bones. But you expect that with esports. I think I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to give Fnatic the Rush, the Focus, and the Flick Pure Overclock's Editor's Choice Award.